All the factors say go, but my heart says no. And that's the decision that I've made. And in it, I finally found some resolution. For me, to do it apart from an inner confidence that I was undertaking it with God's full blessing is simply unthinkable. I can't know or predict the future, but I know for now my answer is clear and firm. I will not seek the Republican nomination for president this year.
Well, that is former Governor Mike Huckabee announcing on Saturday night on his show, Huckabee, here on Fox News Channel, that he will not run for the president in 2012, and that has sort of upset the apple cart in the GOP line of who's going to be now the front runner. Huckabee, of course, was one of the top poll numbers in the GOP lineup. We're going to talk about that and more with our panelists. Republican strategist Philip Pito is here in the studio with me, and down in D.C. is Richard Fowler, a Democratic strategist. Richard, I always got to start with you because you're further away. I feel I don't want to leave you out here. What do you think with Huckabee bowing out? Was it something that the Democrats expected, or is this a surprise for them?
Well, I am not sure if it's something that we expected. We're happy that it happened. I think what it does is it shows that the Republican field is still sort of in a shuffle here. There's no clear front runner, and that means that there's going to be definitely some tough primary competitions, and tough primary competitions are better for the Democrats because the Republicans will spend a lot more money on the primary trying to figure out who's going to run against President Barack Obama. Do I think it would have been a good idea for Huckabee to run if I were a Republican? I think so. I think he'd be a great candidate, a great addition to probably one of their best bets at beating Barack Obama going into 2012. But with that being said, I think you have to look at the current field as it is, and in my mind, I sort of see that, this is Mitt Romney's game now that Mike Huckabee is out.
Yeah, Flip, the implication now, there is no clear front runner. Does that worry the GOP?
No, I don't think so. I think to have a fluid field at this stage is normal and healthy. Mm-hmm. I think it does tend to make Romney the real front runner, as in a lot of the mainstream polls, he and Huckabee sort of shared the top spot. But it's interesting, given that Huckabee, perhaps among the field of well-known candidates, is particularly well concentrated sort of in the sector of the GOP that he tends to cultivate, being the religious and social conservatives. So to see where that vote now goes, it likely does not go a lot to Romney, but possibly to Palin, to Gingrich, to Santorum. Mm-hmm.
But Romney had a problem with the evangelicals last time around.
He did.
They really had an issue with his Mormon faith.
Mm-hmm.
That's the vacuum that Huckabee filled.
Right.
You don't have that now. Mitt Romney we're not quite sure if he's going to still have the problem with the evangelicals. He certainly agrees with them on their social issues, but will they get over the hump of this sort of religious conflict?
They may not. I mean, the real evangelical voters, I think, have a real problem with the Mormon identity of Romney, even though he obviously has not stressed that as a primary feature of his campaign. Evangelical voters nonetheless do see the religious identity of their candidates as significant. But I think ultimately, while we can say, who do the Huckabee voters now go to, and therefore who does his departure benefit, I think long term this benefits the economic and foreign policy focused candidates, because it further takes the religious and social issues off the table. I mean, this year already, or 2012 already, was looking to be squarely an economic, unemployment, financial focused election, with foreign policy as a not distant but second place set of priorities, with social issues clearly in third place. With Huckabee now out of the race, the only thing that was steering the conversation within the GOP primary back to the social issues is off the table. So I think we now really are going to see a conversation based on number one, economy, number two, foreign policy.
I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to get back to that later. But I want to bring in Richard because, Richard, now who would Obama prefer to go up against? The candidate that says, you know what, we like that one we can take a great aim at. Who would be the candidate?
Well, but I think we could really go against any of them and have a good competition, and President Obama would win. I think every Republican candidate in the field presents a problem. I think you have Mitt Romney, who we all know he passed universal health care in Massachusetts. That's his biggest problem going into the 2012 election. You have Tim Pawlenty's biggest problem being that he has his name ID is just not high enough, and I think he has some issues dealing with how the budget of his state was run after he left the governor's mansion, and how much deficit and how much debt the state got into. I think every candidate that, you have your Donald Trump candidate out there who has tons of issues. The fact that he's giving more money to Democrats than he's given to Republicans. You have Michelle Bachmann's being that she doesn't really connect with everybody in the Republican base. She doesn't connect with the old guard Republicans. So I think every one of their frontrunners has a problem that that President Obama could definitely pick off. What I think, when it comes to national security, I think the president wins that debate hands down. The fact that we captured Osama bin Laden, which George Bush wasn't able to do in 6 years of his presidency, shows that President Obama is committed to foreign policy. And when it comes to the economy, I really think that we'll see an uptick in the economy. We're seeing jobs come back. So I think the Republicans are going to have a lot to answer on. Why is it that when they were in control of the House of Representatives, they really weren't pushing forward any clear policies that created job growth.
But he can't rest on the Osama bin Laden killing for very long. I mean, he's still vulnerable because people have a short memory. The same thing that happened to President Bush with Saddam Hussein. I mean, you get really high ratings, high poll numbers right out of the box when that kind of thing happens. But a year is a long time, and the economy is really what people are going to focus on again. So he's not going to rest on this Osama bin Laden thing, right?
Of course not. I think the president I think President Obama has a lot going for him going into 2012. Not only does he have the fact that he killed Osama bin Laden, but he also has the fact that he's showed that he's willing to work with Republicans on a lot of issues. In his weekly address this week, he talked about how he's going to increase. He's going to have leases. He's going to have lease auctions for more leases to drill more oil in the United States, which is something that the Republicans have said that they would like to do. On top of that, his winning the future budget, if it gets through the House of Representatives, will put more money into high-speed rail, more money into transportation reform, more money back into the American people's pockets. I think we're beginning to see the economic growth that we've all talked about was going to happen. It's just it's slow going. But I think by the time you get to November of 2011, or November of 2012, that is, you'll begin to see the unemployment rate drop below the 8% mark, probably in the high sevens, hopefully. And with that numbers, the President Obama is going to. So I think he's going to slide in to get a second term pretty easily.
Yeah, but
because he's put together all the groundwork.
That sounds like a wish list, Santa Claus wish list. I mean, there's a lot of good things that on that list, and like all Christmas lists, you're not going to get everything you want, and it sounds good for the future, but I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. Flip, why don't you come in on this, because I wanted to address that, but also the idea that the GOP have an uphill battle anyway, because once you get to the primaries, it's always going to be a scrappy fight,
right?
And whoever emerges as the winner is going to be not in the strongest position to take it on, because all you have to do is the Democrats have to do is look at the playbook of every other opponent in the primary and go at it.
Yeah, they'll have some insights into strengths and weaknesses of the whoever wins the primary battle, and of course that candidate will emerge battered and bruised from the process and with a depleted bank account. But I think going back to the idea of the wish list, or sort of what pieces need to fall into place for Obama to be in a strong competitive position, it's plausible if we don't see a lot more government intervention in the economy that things will have recovered smartly by the end of 2012, but he likely doesn't have that long. And again, I think the George H.W. Bush example is instructive. The economy had begun to recover swiftly by summer and fall of 1992, but the narrative was already established and people's minds were made up that despite his significant foreign policy victory earlier in his administration that had led to short-lived bumps in his popularity, that the economy had soured under Bush 41 and that lost him the presidency. So Obama likely has no more than another year from now for things to really swiftly turn around. Joe Biden's been saying for well over a year that things are right around the corner. We're going to be creating 250, 350,000 jobs a month. We've never gotten there. In fact, in recent weeks, we've dipped back down into the troughs we haven't seen since the end of summer 2010. So,
of the candidates in the GOP lineup here, and I know that Governor Huckabee, I wish we were joking because I play in the Little Rockers occasionally, and I was joking. I said, if you go on the campaign trail, you could bring the band with you.
That's right.
We could kind of do a little two-step there. But one of the candidates I never really hear a lot about is this Herman Cain, and the reason why I think it's interesting is because the Republican pollster Frank Luntz conducted a focus group on Fox News and found near unanimous agreement that Cain was the winner. This is a 65-year-old black man. He's a Tea Party favorite. Is this a viable contender? Is he somebody, Richard, that the GOP, that the Democrats are actually looking at as a possibility, or is this sort of a fluke?
I'm glad you brought that up, Lauren. I actually blogged about the Republican debate on Fox News and FoxNewsLive.com. And we blogged about, we gave an image report card to all the respective candidates. And I thought Herman Cain came off pretty well. I think the problem that Herman Cain has, I think he has great messaging. I think what he's going to have is he's going to have a big image issue going into if he is a nominee. I think the fact that he seems to be older, and on top of the fact that he seems to be older, he sort of plays the part of being older. And I'm not sure if that's going to really bode well with.
Well, he's the same age as Newt Gingrich too. Obviously, he doesn't have as much name recognition, obviously.
And exactly, the fact that he's the same age as Newt Gingrich and people don't really say that Newt Gingrich is older proves what I've been saying. The fact that he seems to be a little bit older, is going to present some problems against a young viral candidate like President Obama. On top of that, I don't really see where Herman Cain works on, getting independent voters. Independent voters are going to be key in this election. I just don't see how he gets independent voters. I think he's a little bit too far to the right in order for him to capture a lot of those independents. And I think those independents will then eventually just fall to President Obama. On top of that, I think there's also going to be a big debate on where the Latino vote's going to go. And it seems as though that President Obama is making a lot of headway in capturing and recapturing that Latino vote and building the infrastructure needed to get those folks to the polls. He's going to have some help from folks like Harry Reid, who has a great apparatus to bring in Latinos to the polls, as well as on top of Latinos, bringing African Americans to the polls, which I think will come out again in droves to President Obama.
Yeah, Flip, what do you think with this Herman Cain? Is the GOP actually looking at him?
I don't think so going forward that he really is viable.
Why would he win? From the debate, or was it just
the first debate? It was a very thin field of mainstream. Tim Pawlenty was the sort of single mainstream candidate that was involved in that debate. So it was a little more open to outsiders. That being said, I think one of the reasons he did well and why he's been received fairly well is because he has some of that real outsider appeal without being seen as just the wacko that wandered into the debate. He's got credibility both in terms of government service, in terms of Federal Reserve banking, as a successful businessman, as a radio host. So both as an opinion maker, a private sector leader, and a policymaker, he brings a balance of gravitas and is able to translate that into well-spoken messaging that I think connects with people that are, as the saying goes, fed up with both sides in Washington. So when they see an outsider with some credibility and some real appeal, that gets some mileage.
Rich, we're going to have to say goodbye to you pretty soon, but give me your last thoughts on this whole issue.
Sure. I think Herman Cain is great. When I look back at the debate, the only person that I see that had a clear win here was Ron Paul. I think he did a great job in the debate a couple weeks back. I think it's way too early to tell, but I'd put a lot more details into what's happening and how the debate transpired in my mind on my blog, richardafowler.com. So you can go ahead and check that out. But I think Ron Paul was amazing. I think he did a really good job of capturing not only independent voters, but Tea Party voters, as well as Republicans, as well as some Democrats. I found myself identifying a good deal with Ron Paul, and that's sort of embarrassing to say, but it's sort of true. I think he really did a good job of acquiescing to the crowd, and I think that is what you need to see in a nominee. So if Ron Paul isn't the nominee, then I think the top tier candidates like Mitt Romney should learn a lesson from him and try to find a way to sort of appeal to independents instead of going all the way to the right and then coming back to the left or coming back to the center to try to triangulate against the president.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Richard Fowler, Democratic strategist.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Thank you very much for being here. Our other top